Welcome into the Fantasy Football Forge. My name is Steven. It is time for the big mock draft 2.0. We got 3 rounds today. There's about, I can't remember, maybe 19 trades, a bunch of trades going on in here. So I hope you enjoy the video. Couple of things up front here. First of all, this first round, really going to skim past that because I do have an entire article up on my website, www.theFFforge.com. What you can't see above you on here is there's above this screen here the headers, the Fantasy Football Forge, meaning the homepage here, analysis, articles. If you were to click on articles up there, that would bring you to the articles. You can also just go down to the bottom of the page, and right up here, the most recent article post that I had is up top, and there you go, my 3-round mock draft 2.0 with trades, and it has been 4 days since I published this, about 6-7 days since I actually made this. I had a little vacation in there from about the 22nd through yesterday, the 25th. So yeah, nice little 3-4 day vacation. Getting back into it. So I have not seen what I did, nor do I recall exactly what I've done at every point in this draft. So I might have some reactions to my own, decisions along the way throughout this draft. But without wasting too much time, I think let's just get through this first round. First of all, we're going to start off with Caleb Williams. Like I said, on here on the website, you can see I have descriptions, I have reasonings explaining my first round, and then I didn't, continue to write paragraphs about the second and third round. So that's where we'll focus today on talking about. So let's get back to it. The second pick of the draft, we are going to go Jayden Daniels here. Now, this is not what I truly think will happen. There's just been enough smoke around it that I wanted to explore this in a serious manner because I think that if Jayden Daniels were to go second, and now I know since then, all of a sudden there's been a bunch of J.J. McCarthy smoke. I say smoke specifically because I do think that that is the case. I do also want to add, all right, and you'll see, resize the screen a little bit because at the end of every, for the final pick of each team's draft, I will put on the bottom a little compilation so you can see the entirety of their draft. And I am, in part, letting you know this so early because we are going to come to the end of the first team's draft here with the Minnesota Vikings. We're going to have them trading up. I do have a trade here. Picks 11, 23. We're going to go 129 and a 2026 second rounder, which I'm not able to add on here. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that's not enough. But that is what I ended up coming to for this one. So we'll just stick with that. And Minnesota is coming up here, of course, for quarterback, and they will be taking Drake May. So I think I was just about to get to the fact that part of the reason I went Jayden Daniels here was to force Minnesota coming up all the way to the 3 spot. Just wanted to explore that because I think Minnesota would, if Drake May is available at 3, would be looking to move up there. For sure. Maybe they're looking to move up to 2 as well. I'm sure they're exploring all avenues, but you know what I'm saying. I think that's the most reasonable, likely path to Minnesota picking at number 3, and I kind of forced that into this scenario. So looking at that, pick 4, nothing crazy here. Marvin Harrison at pick 5, Los Angeles Chargers. I guess I have them struggling to find a trade partner back, and we're going to just end up going Malik Neighbors. Rome Odunze going to the New York Giants, and I forgot to do one thing on the screen here. There you go. So that was the entirety of the Vikings draft, taking quarterback Drake May. Unfortunately, going to be a little while before they get back on the clock again. So after Joe Alt, we had Atlanta go with Dallas Turner, Jared Verse to the Chicago Bears, and at pick 10, we are going to have another trade here. New York Jets are going to be trading picks 10, 72, 2025, 4th rounder, and Las Vegas is going to be coming up here. I assume to be jumping the Broncos for a quarterback. I honestly don't recall off the top of my head, but we could almost surely assume that that's what it's going to be. We will have to force that one. All right, so the Vegas coming up here for J.J. McCarthy here at pick 10. At pick 11, Amarius Mims, and that's going to be followed up by another trade in just a moment. Denver picking picks 12, 76, 147, getting to move up to 116, 76, 48, and 17. So the Broncos getting to move up from a couple of spots to move back 5 spots here. That will work out nicely there. Jacksonville coming up to pick 12 for Quinyon Mitchell, one of my favorite defensive players, if not my favorite defensive player in this entire draft. After Quinyon Mitchell, we got Brock Bowers going to the Jets at pick 13, Olu Fashanu going to New Orleans, Terrion Arnold going to Indianapolis, and at pick 16, the Seattle Seahawks are going to get a call from Green Bay that they're going to respond to because they don't really have any capital here in the second round. I think they wouldn't mind getting a couple of earlier picks in this draft if possible. You know, they don't have to trade back, that's for sure. But I don't think they would mind it if they get an offer like this from Green Bay. And there's still going to be plenty of talent at pick 25 in this draft. So that is how it goes. Green Bay Packers just, having the ability to get their guy in this instance. We're going to say it is Cooper DeJean that they're loving. So Cooper DeJean, pick 16 to the Green Bay Packers, and then the Denver Broncos will take their quarterback in Bo Nix. We're able to move back, get a little bit of capital, and still stick. I think if they can stick within the top 20 for Bo Nix, they're probably going to be able to be pretty safe about not having to worry about somebody jumping them. But I do think that they kind of have to take a quarterback in the first round of this draft. It's going to be all the way till pick 32 until we have another trade, so I will just update you after I fill in these players. After Bo Nix, Cincinnati went with J.C. Latham. The Rams went with Laiatu Latu. Jackson Powers Johnson to Pittsburgh. Byron Murphy II to the Dolphins. Taliesin Fuanga to the Philadelphia Eagles there at pick 22. I think that would be a nice match that they would be happy to see. Adonai Mitchell to New England at pick 23 with their second pick, right, of this first round. So Amarius Mims just working on that offense there, even though they've got a defensive-minded coach. So we'll see how likely that is. I feel like a lot of times defensive-minded coaches want to get guys in there on their defense, but they were able to re-sign several guys in free agency, so we'll see what route they end up going. Troy Fontenot going to Fautanu. I can't remember which one it's supposed to be pronounced as. I think it's Fautanu. Going to Dallas, and then Jerzon Newton going to Seattle, still getting him at pick 25. So I think that's kind of a dream trade-back scenario for Seattle, as much as any kind of scenario in this draft. Graham Barton going to the Buccaneers, who just need some help along their offensive line, so he's going to be a guy as they build out that offensive line over the coming years that you can move around, a chess piece to work with, which always makes it just easier, I think, for team building scenarios. Nate Wiggins going to Arizona, Brian Thomas Jr. to the Buffalo Bills, and one of my favorite, especially prior to the Lions drafting, signing. Is it Zeitler? Who did they sign? Yep, Kevin Zeitler. That I did this, but I still do like it, just not as much as I liked it then. I thought Zach Frazier, perfect. As far as a culture fit for Dan Campbell, absolutely love the fit. And when they needed a left guard, and then you're looking into the future for Ragnow, he can be your future Ragnow fix, and currently your starting guard for the next couple of years. So, but like I said, love it less, but still like it quite a bit for the Lions here in the first round, just as far as a culture fit goes. But less likely, I would say, in this scenario, since they have signed Kevin Zeitler. That's going to bring us up to Kool-Aid McKinstry with the Falcons, and Tyler Guyton going to San Francisco, where we are going to see the New England Patriots trading picks 34 and 103 to the Kansas City Chiefs for 32, 173, and a future 5th round. So the Chiefs really pulling this pick up much, much closer, further up in the draft. And New England coming up here, I think, as much as any reason, just ensuring that they get him, not even necessarily ensuring that they get that 5th round option, 5th year option, but Michael Penix Jr. here at pick 32 going to the New England Patriots, and that is where we are really going to start my draft. The Panthers have gotten themselves into a spot where they don't necessarily have to take a wide receiver with this 33rd pick, in part because they are going to be picking in 6 picks, as well as just helping to beef up that wide receiver room. So instead, having them looking at another need that they just created, and we're going to go Chop Robinson to Carolina. I think a valid replacement option for Brian Burns. Chop Robinson, top-end athlete, but very raw, so don't expect him year one to be coming out and just being absolutely amazing for you, but a good future prospect for Carolina there. And then that's going to bring Kansas City back on the clock, and for the second time already in this draft, we're just going to trade back again a little ways. Kansas City picks 34, 103 that they just, so the 2 picks that they just acquired, going to be condensing those down even a little bit more, with the Houston Texans moving up here, picks 42 and 86. and that's going to go through. And the Houston Texans are moving up here to take Ladd McConkey. And I do love this fit. That will work very nicely for him. They'll find a spot for Ladd. And Houston wasted no time to get a nice little weapon for their young quarterback there to kind of complete. I mean, he's got weapons all over the place at that point. So you love that. Arizona going to be going with possible tackle, possible guard in Jordan Morgan. They can use that flexibility anyways, so that'll work nicely. I think that's a great pick for them. Washington going safety Tyler Nubin. They need help there. TJ Tampa going to be going to the Chargers, so nicely for them. One of these more higher end cornerbacks I think sticks around before we really hit a bit of a fall off at the position. Although I'm a little bit higher up on a couple of cornerbacks now than I was previously. It moved them from kind of like more third round guys to second round guys, so that helps my viewpoint of the cornerbacks. I don't think there's as much of a drop off as I previously did. And here's a guy who's been falling down drafts. At pick 38, we are going to have Tennessee taking Ennis Rackstraw, and that's going to bring a conclusion to Tennessee's draft here. Unfortunately, not a whole lot of draft capital. This is why they're definitely a team who could be looking to move back from that 7th spot, or at least open to it. So with that pick, we got Joe Alt going to the Tennessee Titans and cornerback Ennis Rackstraw Jr. You know, for what they've got to work with, that's a fine draft. They've done some nice stuff in free agency. So I think Tennessee, especially with these first couple of rounds here, rounding out to have a pretty decent squad compared to what, you know, it could look like at this point. So Tennessee making a quick turnaround, in my opinion, with this kind of draft and this kind of offseason looking nice. At pick 39, we've got the Carolina Panthers now going for wide receiver, and I have them going for Xavier Worthy. Just going to open things up for the rest of that offense, and I like Xavier Worthy. I do think my biggest concern is just going to be his ability to stay on the field more than anything. I do think that he's going to be a little bit gadgety just because you probably want to limit the amount of hits that you're having to take until he can prove that he's durable, so at least early on in his career, gadgety. But I do think that he has more skills than a typical gadget player. I think he is a better route runner than your typical gadget player. I do think that he can attack you at all, 3 areas of the field: short, intermediate, and deep. So I am a fan of Xavier Worthy. It just really, and I know his playing weight's got to be higher than what he ran at, but still it's going to be pretty low. And so, yeah, he's just a durability concern. But I think well worth taking a shot on at pick 39. Brings us to Washington getting back on the clock. And here we are going to go with edge rusher Darius Robinson. Just give them a little bit of versatility along that line. He can pop in on the inside on third and longs to give you some internal pressure, and he can pop on in the outside and just give guys some breathers. Maybe if he's not your starter, but whatever the case, he'll probably be one of your starters for now, so he's not really giving anybody a breather. But in a few years, it might be able to move him around a little bit more once you have a rotation there in Washington. And the Green Bay Packers now on the clock here at pick 41, and we're going to have them going with Peyton Wilson right off the top of the board here. They need another linebacker there, and we'll see. Peyton Wilson could be off their board for injury concerns, durability concerns, or he could be at the very top of it. Otherwise, Edgerrin Cooper might be somebody that they'd be looking at there as well. As we bring the Kansas City Chiefs back up on the clock again here, and they are also going to be looking along the defensive line, not the offensive line. And I ended up having them take Braden Fisk. They just saw with Chris Jones how, and not that they didn't know that prior to this year, but especially in the Super Bowl, how awesome it is to have that internal rush. Braden Fisk is a guy who I think can help to bring that for you down the road, as well as just being a really good player. And you can never have enough pass rush. So we'll bring that, all across the defensive line there for Kansas City. I like that attack. Then we're going to bring Atlanta back up onto the clock, and they could use, I think, a little bit of help at the cornerback position. Might even be where they're looking to go at the first round with their, number 8 pick or something like that. But here, that's not what I did for them, so we're going to go Kamari Lassiter, cornerback to the Atlanta Falcons, and that's going to bring the New York Jets up on the clock next. And as you can see now, that is also going to be the end of the draft for the New York Jets. We're going to give them tight end Brock Bowers and wide receiver Keon Coleman. Now, this one's, maybe a little bit curious. They could definitely still use one more offensive lineman. They've got a bunch of guys who you really can't trust to be there for the rest of the season. There we go, Keon Coleman added to the New York Jets roster there. But I'm just having them kind of go all in here with these first two picks and giving their quarterback a chance to do something special here this year. And there's still some room to grab one more offensive lineman in this draft. I think there's several good guys that you can find a little bit later on. But addressing the defensive side of the ball, safety, interior of the defense are definitely spots where you might see the New York Jets look here. That's going to bring us to another trade here, actually, at pick 45. And that trade is going to look like so. So we've got the New Orleans Saints trading picks 45 and 150. And we have the Denver Broncos actually coming up here, spending picks 48 and 116 to move up to 45 there, moving back 116 to 150. So not losing the amount of picks, but just losing a little bit of their capital to come up here and get their guy. And who is their guy that's left on the board? Is somebody who I think maybe they want to have interest in. Maybe they would seem a little bit too much like Marvin Mims, but we're going to go with wide receiver Troy Franklin. Like I said, that is going to end Denver's draft. So there you go. You got Bo Nix throwing to his companion. That's right, Troy Franklin. So another reason why they might seek out Troy Franklin in here is just to give a certain comfort level to Bo Nix moving into this system. They were teammates in college, if you're not aware, at Oregon. Oregon, how do I pronounce it? I don't know. That's going to bring us on to pick 46 here. Indianapolis going to be going for a linebacker in Edgerrin Cooper, which you can't go wrong with that pick, in my opinion. And you see Indianapolis just kind of filling in the gaps along their defense that they still have. I think that could be a very dangerous defense if a couple of these first-rounders turn out, given how well they did play last year, too. That's to bring New York Giants on the clock. However, it's not, because we are going to see a trade here. New York Giants trading pick 47 back for 2 picks here. Just get a little bit more capital. As you can see, that's definitely not a high capital draft for them. And Kansas City is going to be using some of that capital that they've gotten to move up now to get their guys, pick 64 and 86, to move up to 47 here. And Kansas City has their eyes on a developmental tackle in Patrick Paul, who I actually like just a little bit more than Tyler Guyton. And I'm lower on Tyler Guyton than the consensus is. Just did really impress me a whole lot. Patrick Paul, I think, is a guy who not only played better at the college level, but also really has the tools that everybody claims that Tyler Guyton has, outside of maybe the simple mobility that Tyler Guyton has, but the physical tools that a lot of people always tout for Tyler Guyton, but tenfold, not even tenfold, but twofold, because Tyler Guyton still has those tools, but Patrick Paul to a greater extent. And I mean, just a big dude. I think that would be a good place for Patrick Paul to end up if Kansas City would like, and I think that they've shown in the past that they do like these big offensive linemen. That's going to bring us on to the New Orleans Saints. Xavier Legette going to be drafted. There's no trade here. So Xavier Legette to the New Orleans Saints. I do think that they could use a little bit more wide receiver help there to just complete and round out that whole group. And I like Xavier Legette to New Orleans. So New Orleans fans, I'm interested in what you think about that. That is actually going to bring your draft to a conclusion. So let's see what your draft looked like. Yep, there it is. So you got Olu Fashanu in the first round, and then there must have been a trade here at some point. You picked up a 4th rounder this year, and you got Xavier Legette as well. Yeah, there was a trade with Jacksonville, maybe. Does that sound right? So congratulations, New Orleans. Not a bad first 2 rounds there. A little bit of extra capital. Hopefully you like that. That's going to bring on the Cincinnati Bengals at pick 49, and they are going to be going for a tight end here in Jatavian Sanders. I know they've brought in, re-signed a couple of their tight ends and everything, but I still think that is something that they'll be looking for a long-term solution to. And tight ends usually take a while to develop anyways. Philadelphia coming on the board next, and Philly's got a need at wide receiver. We're going to give them Roman Wilson here. It could be Ricky Pearsall. Yeah, it could be a lot of guys. I went Roman Wilson. I will say it was a little bit too early for me, but Malachi Corley is somebody who I think would be interesting in the Philadelphia Eagles system. for them if they wanted to toy around with that. But we'll go a little bit more traditional of a slottish kind of guy here in Roman Wilson, slot guy. And that's going to bring onto the clock at pick 51, another trade here. We're going to see Pittsburgh trading out. So Pittsburgh trading picks 51, 195, and a future 7th. And I think you would probably prefer Pittsburgh 7th over Philadelphia 7th. So we'll say that Houston gets the choice there. So we are going to be seeing Houston come up here. Pick 59, 103, going back to 195, and a 2025 6th rounder there, swapping those two out. So there is your trade, and Houston coming up for their own tackle prospect here. You're going to get Kingsley Suamataia, a guy who a lot of people are kind of putting up into the first round. I'm a little bit lower on him, but yeah, it wasn't until now that I was lower on him, I suppose. So still a guy who I like quite a bit. Just apparently others like him even more. Regardless, wherever he goes in the draft, yeah, a nice projection kind of guy who shows some upside. A lot of people, I've seen some people like him more than Tyler Guyton. So I've been hearing some people finally putting a little bit of doubt on the Tyler Guyton thing. I still think that might be more of a media thing than it is an actual insider football thing. Just based on what I've heard and haven't heard about him. So that ends the draft for the Houston Texans, wide receiver Ladd McConkey and Kingsley Suamataia. In both of those instances, using a little bit of capital to move up and just make sure that they get their guy in each instance. So I like those two picks for Houston, just kind of finishing off that offense where I would assume most of the rest of this draft would probably just be on defense, getting guys that they like there and filling in some holes. So Los Angeles Rams are going to be coming up onto the clock next. And we're going to look on the inside of the line. I'm going to have them going T'Vondre Sweat here. I could see them liking somebody else as well. Chris Jenkins, maybe I have higher on my board. I really do like T'Vondre Sweat a lot. It's just going to take the right team to like him. But and then just where is that value? I don't think any team's quite going to view him as somebody that they 100% trust they'll be able to have out there on 3 downs. So that hurts his value a little bit. You can't trust him to be out there on every down because he's just going to get tired and won't be useful to you by the time you hit the third quarter. That's no bueno. So that's going to bring up Philadelphia at pick 53. And actually, I think this is the same darn pick I had in my 1.0 for them. And that is going to be the Yale prospect here, Kyron Amagaji, who would probably be going higher if he had not torn his quadriceps, I believe is the injury that he had late last season. So that's going to actually finish Philadelphia's draft here. And they're just, looks like they're just kind of whipping that offense into shape here for now and for into the future. Focusing on that offensive line between Fwanga and Kyron Amagaji for now and into the future a little bit there, as I said. And then Roman Wilson at wide receiver. And now they too will probably be focusing a lot more on the defense for the rest of the draft, just bringing guys in and hoping for the best there. So that is going to bring us up to pick 54, and Cleveland Browns fans, I'm so sorry. You're going to have to wait just a little bit longer here on draft day for your first pick. We're going to have the San Francisco 49ers trading up. And what is the capital here? So Cleveland trading picks 54 and a future 6th rounder. We'll just say San Francisco gets a little bit of say on this one. We'll go for Minnesota's 6th rounder instead of Detroit's 6th rounder. And maybe they don't, I don't know, maybe they don't get the preference here because Minnesota is the one moving up. 63, 124, and a 2025 4th rounder in order to come up here to 54. So there is your trade from San Francisco. And what are they coming up for? None other than, apparently they're loving, and I love him too, edge rusher Marshawn Kneeland here, going off at pick 54 to San Francisco. I think he'd be a good culture fit there in San Francisco. Bigger guy, he can help against the run, but is a pass rusher. And just a little bit more development for him to, I think, unlock some of a little bit of athleticism that he might have that doesn't really show up on the field in part. Either way, I just really like the pick there for San Francisco. Cleveland moving back. And I assume thought process was probably just jumping ahead of Miami as much as anything here to ensure that they get their edge rusher, fearing that Miami might be interested in getting that position. If they were, then that might make sense because we've got another trade back here for Miami. They're going to trade pick 55, probably looking to get a little more capital here. And none other than the Los Angeles Chargers are going to be moving up on the board here from pick 69, and that's going to cost them pick 105 to move up. I have the Chargers being very aggressive in this mock draft situation. So there we go. Chargers coming up here, and oftentimes they are being very aggressive for their guys from college here. Chris Jenkins is going to be the pick at pick 55. They need some help along the internal defensive line there. Absolute run stuffer. So that's going to bring us up to 56 with the Dallas Cowboys up on the clock. Next, we'll be going none other than Devontae Walker. I think this is about where he should be going in the draft. And there's the reasoning is there's a chance that we could be looking back and saying, shoot, he was a first round pick. What were we thinking in a couple of years? So with that kind of upside, Dallas will be very happy, and I think he's going to be a good fit there for what they need, help to keep things open for CeeDee Lamb, etc. Give him a nice deep target there. Yeah, just a big play guy. I think something that they need in that offense. Then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to be looking towards the offensive line on this pick. We're going to give them a Cooper Beebe a little bit lower on Trevor Sikkema's board here, but there he is, pick 123. Sikkema is, by the way, if you're not familiar, just very low on Cooper Beebe compared to consensus, compared to some people who like him a lot. I tend to be closer to somebody who likes him a lot. So for me, I think that this is a very good pick for Tampa at pick 57. Compared to how low he is on the board here. That's going to bring the Seattle Seahawks on the board next at pick 58. And we're going to be seeing just a little bit of run here. Christian Haynes going off the board to Seattle. I don't remember. This could have been, Christian Haynes. No, I think that's just my rankings. I think I have Cooper Beebe ahead of Christian Haynes, but very much in the same tree. I was going to say maybe this was a style of the offense decision there, but I don't remember looking into that between those two. But that could always change, which order they go in. Either way, that's going to bring Pittsburgh up on the clock next. And we're going to continue this little rush, the second rush on the offensive line. And another guy a little bit lower on Sikkema's board. I'm as high as pretty much anybody on Christian Jones. So I'll be realistic about that right off the top. But Pittsburgh, in this situation, going to get that offensive line help there from Christian Jones. And that's going to bring up the Buffalo Bills for their final pick of this draft. There you go. You already know where we're going here. They're going to go to Rook Aro. That's how it is pronounced. Aro. I think I've got the number of rows in there correctly. And Rook, I think, very much fits what Buffalo is going to be looking for. So if he's available here, this is one that I could definitely be seen as a reality. And once again, earlier they took Brian Thomas Jr. So addressing a couple of needs here with guys who, value-wise, also, I think, fit right around where they're taking them. So that makes sense. Let's get on to pick 61 with the Detroit Lions. They did not go edge before. There's still a need there. Cornerback, probably still a need unless I had them take that in the first round. But that's right. We went with center Zach Frazier. So everything is available here, but as you can see, that's why. Definitely some edge rushers that are looking to be falling here. And I actually have higher up on my board Jonah Ellis. Is he exactly what we imagine the Detroit Lions will be looking for? I don't know for sure. This is probably partially because of my board that I have them taking Jonah Ellis next, but I also think that to give them a little bit something different as far as just a speed rusher, Jonah Ellis would be that guy. And so they could be looking this route. We just don't really know exactly which archetype they want to fulfill on their team because they do already have kind of both of them. So in this instance, we're going to go Jonah Ellis, which I think is a look into the future a little bit too, compared to maybe getting a little bit better with their bigger rusher on the other side of the ball. So that's going to bring us up onto who am I trying to think of? The Josh Pascal role is what I was trying to think of. So this is more of the James Houston kind of role here with Adisa Isaac. All right. That's going to bring us on to the Baltimore at pick 62, but it's actually not because they are going to be trading. So we're going to see Jacksonville coming up here. Can I guess what Jacksonville's coming up onto the board for? A bunch of offensive line just went. I'm going to guess maybe offensive line if we didn't address that with their first pick. So anyways, Jacksonville coming up onto the clock, up to trade from pick 76, and it's going to take pick 76, 114 for them to move up to 62. Baltimore acquiring a little bit more capital, actually, which they might not need necessarily at this point. So interesting. But I must have a plan for Baltimore. So Jacksonville does come up here for, interesting. Yes. Okay. Wide receiver, Ricky Pearsall. They did not address wide receiver in the first round. Something that I think that they definitely will be looking to bring somebody else in the earlier portion of this draft this year. So that makes enough sense. Probably jumping up ahead of Cleveland. Even some of these teams might be looking for some. So that makes enough sense. Cleveland themselves have a very complete roster, actually, I think. So, with what they've done at wide receiver, not desperate there to just get one immediately if they don't think the value is there, if they see value elsewhere. And I think that they very well might see that Mikey Sanders still has fallen. They might feel the same way as how this board feels, that he could have gone a long time ago. And he did not yet. So that should be great value for them to help them continue to keep their defense great down the road. Best player available. And that's going to bring the New York Giants up to finish off the second round of this draft. And we are going to have them giving a shot to Spencer Rattler at the end of the second round here. Spencer Rattler, somebody who I'm sure we're going to hear talk about, late in the process, like, you could go the first round. I'm not going to really buy into that, but late second round, mid second round, even I could definitely see that for Spencer Rattler. A little bit higher than I have a grade on him for, but regardless, it's the quarterback position, so that happens. But I think it makes a lot of sense for New York to get a guy like Spencer Rattler, specifically Spencer Rattler, if none of the others fall to them earlier second round. Bring him in. They're apparently, the statement has come out that they're tired of Daniel Jones, that they're over it, essentially. So Spencer Rattler will give you a shot, and if things don't work out, you didn't really spend any capital on him, so it's whatever, and you can go and spend some capital on trying to get your quarterback of the future in next year's draft or the draft after that, if this proves to be a fruitless pick. But I think very much worth the capital, worth a shot here in Spencer Rattler. That's going to bring us up onto pick 65, and Carolina is going to trade out of this spot again here. I think a second trade back for Carolina. They don't have to trade back this many times, but if they're in a spot that they could, it would make enough sense. So Carolina's going to be getting rid of pick 65. We're going to see another, actually a 3-for-1, because Indianapolis is maybe not got the best capital situation to be moving up here. A bit of a jump here from pick 82. So it's going to be 82, 117, and a future fifth in order to really convince Carolina to move up, I'm sure. So we will offer that. That gets accepted. Indianapolis coming up here. And they're going to get Jermaine Burton. Here is a wide receiver who I love this for Carolina, Indianapolis. So this is going to finish Indianapolis's draft. So let me get their full draft up on the screen here first. All right, here we are. So I guess I have Adrian Cooper a little out of order there, but there is the completion of the draft. Cornerback, linebacker, two really good picks there, and Jermaine Burton. Also, as far as the talent goes, very, very highly talented wide receiver who probably would be a top 10 wide receiver in this draft if it was not for his attitude on the field and off of the field, and it's pretty darn serious, some of what he's done. So, yeah, obviously not so serious that he's in jail or anything, but easy character concerns. Could fall further in this draft than the third round. Maybe he doesn't, and so here is a situation where I kind of am leaning towards the maybe he doesn't because of the talent, and Indianapolis. I mean, this would be a really good draft for them here in the first 3 rounds, and would have some really high upside if they're willing to take the risk here, and if it were to pan out, of course, with Jermaine Burton actually being A very talented wide receiver for them. It'd be a great addition to their wide receiver room. I really like it in terms of that. Off-field stuff is a bit, not even a bit, is a big concern. So that's going to bring on the Arizona Cardinals on the clock, and they are going to get, is this the last? Nope, we got one more of the top 4 linebackers. They're going to go for Junior Colson. Some people think he is the best of the big 4 in the linebacker room this offseason, but Arizona going to get probably a decent value here in the 3rd round there. Then Washington coming up on the clock next. They have lost a couple of their, line of scrimmage type of wide receivers, Curtis Samuel, and their running back, whose name is not coming into my brain right now, but, the running back who was a wide receiver type running back. Well, here's the one guy who really can help to come in and fill out that role in the short time period in Malachi Corley, and hopefully develop into something more for you down the road. So I think that some team is going to jump on Malachi Corley early enough in the draft. I'm not like super high on him. I do actually have him ranked fairly highly. I'll probably be pushed him down before draft day a little bit more too again. But regardless, I have a lot of red flag concern types of things for Malachi Corley, but I think at the end of the day, there's enough there that a team's going to say, we're taking a shot on this. And so that's kind of what I have Washington doing here, and I think that it's a nice fit for them too. Like I said, Philadelphia is a team I really think would be interesting for Malachi Corley. There's a few teams who I think would be the most interesting for him. We'll see where he ends up going on draft day. But that's going to bring up pick 68, and this is going to be ending the New England Patriots draft for today. So let's see how that goes. And New England's been busy. I mean, look at what they've done. So a couple of trades, getting some future capital here. And we're going to end this on Chris Braswell. So let's just look at this. Their haul here is going to be a 2025 5th rounder, 2026 2nd rounder. They might have given up some future capital. I tried to really just only include, like, if you were improving capital, any improved capital, but I didn't include like lost capital in these trades. So they might have given away a little bit of future capital, but whatever they would have given away got improved to some of this stuff. So another 4th rounder for this year, then that 5th rounder, future 6th rounder in a couple of seasons, and then Amarius Mims, Adonai Mitchell, Michael Penix Jr. to really round out that offense and start looking at where this team's strength really probably wants to lie, by taking Chris Braswell here at pick 68, which definitely could be a value. You saw I think, would have been on top of Trevor Sikkema's board here as far as guys left. So I would say that New England fans, let me know if the draft went like this. How do you like it? You might think that you can get a little bit more capital for that first trade. It's very much possible that you would. Might have a 2025, first rounder there instead. That was part of the reason why I gave this 4th rounder up when I made that capital. But we don't know exactly how it ended up being until it ends up being a trade. But outside of that, what do you think of this draft for New England? Would you like that? I'm curious to know about that one. That's going to bring Miami up onto the clock next, and they too will be finishing there. So goodbye, New England. Let's get Miami up here. And so Miami also has picked up an extra pick in the 4th round. They got Byron Murphy there as a replacement on the interior in that 1st round pick. And now they're going to take Mason McCormick, offensive guard. And I think that this is just one of those dream fits for Miami. Mason McCormick, a very mobile guard. So definitely a team that wants to lean on speed, that uses the Shanahan system type of interior lineman. He's not, the biggest guy in the world or anything like that, but he's going to be able to get out on screens, slip out on horizontal running plays, like pull plays for the guard. All that stuff is going to be where Mason McCormick is going to be, a chess piece, really, ultimately, for a coach like Mike McDaniels here in Florida, in Miami. And like I said, and to have on the screen, that's going to end their draft. So that's going to bring the New York Giants up next. Their draft is still going, but for now, they're going to take a guy who I love, who I actually moved up on my board a little bit since doing this. So don't know if he would still be around. But Max Melton has been a draft crush of mine since starting to look at this class, really. And he's started to get some steam as of late, so I definitely want to proclaim my love for him. I swear, This isn't a new love for Max Melton. But yes, he is my guy in this draft process. I just love how he plays the game. Very aggressive, but also smart. He sits there and waits on things before making the move, but then he's got the quickness, the click and close to make that move, get there in time, and react and all that. I think that he's going to be a really, really good player at the next level. Maybe not a top-notch player, but I do think that there is a small window for him to be able to be like a L'Jarius Sneed type of quality guy in 3-4 years. It might take that long to get there as well, but also, just like L'Jarius Sneed, I think from day one, you can put him out there, and he's going to be pretty solid for you. So that's Max Melton to the New York Giants, who definitely have a need there at cornerback. That's going to bring us on to the Arizona Cardinals at pick 71. Their draft is not over yet, but for now, they're going to get another kind of just my guys going off the board here in Dominic Puni. A little bit of a disappointing draft process, I guess, for him, but mostly the combine was a little bit disappointing. But I still like him quite a bit. And so I think that that's a good pick for Arizona. They need some more help along that offensive line. Good value there, but like I said, Arizona's not done, and Las Vegas isn't taking a pick here. We're actually going to see Arizona seeing a couple of guys that they wish that they could get, and they're jumping right back up. It's going to be a big jump up, so it's obviously going to take something for them to prove to get the Las Vegas Raiders to move up, especially you look, it's not like the Raiders are absolutely dead on capital. However, some of this is definitely later 7th round, maybe 6th round capital there. So Las Vegas going to give up pick 72 and a 2025 7th rounder. What are they getting? They're going to get pick 90. They're going to pick 104 and a future 6th rounder. 104 and 90. Yep, that makes enough sense to me, and just closing the gap, giving them a little better future. That makes a lot of sense. All right, let's go, Arizona, getting it done. And they're going to come back up here to finish their draft. And there you go, very full draft. So as you can see, we're looking at that, at the board and seeing Bralen Trice. He's got to be right up here, isn't he? There we go. A little bit further down on Sigma's board than he used to be. But this is about appropriate value for me, for him. So coming maybe towards an end of a tier here, Arizona just wanted to attack, and they found a spot that they could. So their whole draft for the first 3 rounds ends there, with wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. in the first round, Nate Wiggins later on in the first round, Jordan Morgan, that got to be early 2nd round, Junior Colson, Dominic Puni, and Bralen Trice, all more recent picks. So I think that that's a solid draft for Arizona, addressing a lot of needs. They still have plenty of capital left in this draft, but they did use a little bit of capital to get a couple guys there earlier than they might have been up on the board next. So you gotta like that. And Detroit Lions are coming up on the board next. This is going to be their final pick. So how does that look? There you go. They're going to be addressing that safety spot there in Javon Bullard. How low is he on here? He's got to be coming up. Oh, well. Javon Bullard. Okay, he must have been right there. Ranked 48, so definitely, according to Sycamores board, going to be a great value here for Detroit Lions fans, the organization there, and getting Javon Bullard at pick 73. Very good safety. Going to be a lot of people's second best safety in this class, I think. So I think that works nicely for Detroit. I think he's a nice compliment there. Then the Atlanta Falcons come up onto the board next, and they're going to we're going to get another guy who, according to Sigma's board, is falling, Jalen Polk. A lot of people like this guy, so he definitely might go higher in the draft than this. I do like him a lot for Atlanta. I think he adds a nice little element to that team, described as a junkyard dog kind of guy, which they have a lot of speed and whatnot with their other weapons. So I think that this just gives them a presence over the middle of the field in that intermediate kind of range that they don't currently have in their wide receiver room or just in general. And a certain physicality that their other weapons, I don't want to say they're not physical like Drake London or anything, but, just a little bit more of an attitude here from Jalen Polk that I just think that is lacking a little bit from that Atlanta the weapons that they have and helps to complete their weapons that they have. So hopefully Atlanta's not complete with that wide receiver room, because I don't love what they've done in free agency, and a guy like Jalen Polk would be nice to complete that, round that out. That's going to bring on Chicago onto the board next, and this is going to be the end of their draft. Getting Caleb Williams early on, Jared Verse not too long after that, and then they need a center. We're going to go with Cedric Van Pran here to Chicago, and I think that works out nicely for them. This was a need. They didn't have to spend any capital to get up there. They didn't trade back earlier to get more capital or anything like that. Just kind of worked with what they got, and I think that those 3 picks, I just don't think that you could be upset with that if you were a Chicago Bears fan. Definitely moving out of that number 9 spot there, Jared Verse, wouldn't be the end of the world either, but there's no guarantee that somebody wants to come up there, or that whoever wants to come up there is not so far back in the draft that you just really don't want to move that far back as Chicago. So that's going to bring Baltimore up on the clock next, and they're looking for a little bit more help on the edge. And here we are going to get a guy who has fallen on Sycamores board in Adisa Isaac. I think this is about appropriate value for him. Yeah, not much to say about that. They just need help along the edge there. So we're going to bring in the best player available at a spot of need as well for Baltimore, which brings the Las Vegas Raiders on the clock next. Now, this is the area of the draft where you might start thinking running back would be possible, depending on what they think of their running back. I personally really like White and think that he deserves an opportunity based on how he did perform last year. And I think that Pierce probably likes his running style too, and thinks that he's kind of the type of back that they would like as their primary back. So I think that he's going to get a solid shot. I don't think they're going to go running back this early in the draft. They could be looking to do that, but in this draft, I also have not given them a cornerback yet, apparently. And so that is the route that we're going to go with Kyrie Jackson. They need some help there. Sigma's board, that was actually a bit of a guy who fell a little bit. And this was a spot I know I looked for a long time trying to figure out which cornerback to give them here. I landed on Kyrie Jackson. It could be a few other guys. And Baltimore is going to make a move up here that... Baltimore, you might not love this. I don't know. It's just going to depend your feelings on this player. But first, let's get the trade in before we spoil it. So, to come up here to Washington's pick, I was going to take Baltimore, pick 93, 113 to come up here to pick 78. This is actually, I don't believe, the end of Baltimore's draft yet, so we don't need to bring on that little bottom portion of the screen. But we're going to come up for wide receiver. Of course, some people might think Jalen McMillan. A lot of people are pretty high on him. Javon Baker, same thing there. Johnny Wilson could make some sense. He's a guy who I think somebody's going to take a shot on him in the 3rd round in the draft. But I have a lot of concerns about him. Nobody's ever really been successful as a wide receiver that is his build. But there's also some things about him that are different, like truly that are different, and that make you think that possibly he could. Jamari Thrash had some more steam earlier on in the draft process, has maybe not had the best process, I guess, and the same can be said of Brendan Rice. However, I still like a lot about Brendan Rice, and I think that he's going to give this wide receiver room kind of just a steady piece of something that it needs. And so that's the route I went, a little bit of a bigger presence too in Brendan Rice. So, not much to say on that. It's just I like Brendan Rice still quite a bit, and he, I think, fits a rough area of wide receiver need for Baltimore, who I do think wants to take a wide receiver here within the first 2 days of the draft. And now we're really heading down the stretch, the final 21 picks of this mock draft. And there's going to be a lot of teams coming to their final picks of the draft, starting off right here with Atlanta. So there you go. You see I'm going to have Atlanta go in with Michael Hall Jr. off the board there with pick 79 of this draft, concluding their draft with an interior defensive lineman there. Michael Hall, unique build to him, a little bit of a guy who might be able to move around a little bit. He had a very good Senior Bowl as well, was very impressive there. This is around the area of the draft where you'll think he'll probably start going, a little bit lower on Sycamores board, I believe, than Consensus board. So they got Dallas Turner there, then Michael Hall. He's going to be able to bring a little bit of heat onto the quarterback, Michael Hall himself, so a little bit more pass rush there as well. And then, pass rush there. I'm circling my screen. And then Kamari Lassiter in at cornerback to help that out. So 3 defense, 1 wide receiver here in Jalen Polk. As you know, that offense is darn near close to go anyways, so that makes a lot of sense. I think that is a pretty solid draft there for Atlanta. Doesn't exceed my expectations. I think they pretty much just took players. I don't know if I had them trade at all. And it doesn't disappoint in any way either, I don't think. Kamari Lassiter, very, very safe guy to have. So I like this draft for them. Let me know, Falcons fans. Any fans, let me know. I know you're not all going to like them, and some of you might have reason. I can tell you I don't love what I did for the Green Bay Packers at the end of the day here. So that's going to bring the Bengals up onto the board next, and Bengals are going to get not quite a my guy, but some people's my guy kind of material guy in Chris Abrams Drain, and I do like him quite a bit. He is going to be in the same mold is probably going to want to put him like as a nickelback, but he has the ability to play on the perimeter for teams. This is going to be the final pick of the Bengals draft. And so there you see, they did get a little future capital there and a future 5th rounder. J.C. Latham early on. That's very important. I do think that did they sign a tackle since I did this? Possibly. I don't think that it's just like a 1-year deal kind of thing. So I don't think it would prevent them from taking tackle in the 1st round if that's the case. Then Jatavian Sanders, same thing. What they've done this offseason is not going to prevent them from taking a high-end tight end if they get the opportunity, and he's best on their board at that point in time. And then quarterback Chris Abrams Drain here to wrap up this 1st round for the Bengals. So I don't think there's anything to complain about there for the Bengals, addressing some needs, and I think getting pretty good talent along the way at spots of those needs. Chris Abrams Drain just going to bring a little bit something else to that secondary as well. That's going to bring Seattle on the clock at pick 81. And they're going to bring in a guy who I don't know if they'll have interest in Kalen Bullock or not. But I'm going to give them Kalen Bullock. He's a guy who can kind of do single high. I think he adds to that safety room and gives them something else to work with there that's just different than the other guys that they have. Kind of give them a formation A, a formation B situation. Maybe Kalen Bullock's not your full-time safety, but you might have certain situations and formations where you really he's incredibly value to you in. So that's what I like about Kalen Bullock for Seattle. Like I said, I don't know for sure that that's what they want or not, but I think it'd be fun. So there is the final portion of your draft, getting a little bit of extra capital in the 6th round this year at pick 202. Then Jerzon Newton, Christian Haynes, and Kalen Bullock here in the first 3 picks in the first 2 rounds. So that was also extra capital because they only have 2 picks in the first 2 rounds. So by trading back, they got that pick for Christian Haynes from the Green Bay Packers. So there you go. I think, it was the Green Bay Packers they traded back with. That is what I did for Seattle there. Let me know what you think of that. I think you're addressing 3 spots there that you could use some improvement in. I like that for Seattle. That's going to bring Carolina up on the board next. Also going to be their final pick, so let's get that up on the screen first. All right, Carolina, folks. I have screwed something up. Tanner Bortolini is not one of the picks for you. I guess I decided to go a different path. I know at one point I was thinking of doing that, I believe for Carolina. But Renardo Green is actually the pick here, cornerback. I am not going back and re-entering all this. That'll take just as long as almost as it does to record. But Renardo Green, cornerback, is actually the pick here at pick 82. And that does finish the draft. There are no more picks, I don't believe, unless I missed it here, for Carolina where they would pick up Tanner Bortolini. So I don't know how that happened, but there were other mistakes that I caught before filming that, we'll see one of them that I just crossed out a couple of guys on here. So it did happen. There were some things that I changed along the way too. Who knows, maybe that's an artifact of something that I changed or was thinking of doing and I wrote it down because I was so confident I was going to do it and then I didn't. I'm assuming that's actually what happened. So that's going to bring on the Los Angeles Rams at pick 83. Let's make sure there's no trading there. There is a trade here coming up at pick 83. And we're going to see the Las Vegas Raiders coming up. They're going to get picks 83 and 154 back for picks 90 and 112. There we go. And that's going to bring the Las Vegas up onto the clock. They traded up here for, oh, interesting. All right. Somebody who they might not have interest in because of, I believe it's Trey Turner that they drafted last year. However, I think that these two are very different, and I think that they can exist on the same team. And I think that one of them, Malik Washington, has a higher chance of developing into an every down back, wide receiver, I should say, not back. So Malik Washington going to Las Vegas here, smaller receiver, but he plays big. Contested catches are like really good for him. He reminds me a fair bit of my boy from last year from Indianapolis, Josh Downs, who would have went somewhere around here in the draft as well. So I think this is probably appropriate for where the NFL might be viewing Malik as far as the highest that they'll draft him. But in this instance, Las Vegas feeling that they got to spend some cash to come up here, probably in order to get up ahead of the Steelers, Browns, both teams that could be looking for a wide receiver here. That wraps up Las Vegas's draft. Got a 4th rounder, a future 5th, a future 6th, and quarterback J.J. McCarthy, Kyrie Jackson, and wide receiver Malik Washington there for J.J. to grow with. A solid draft for Las Vegas if they were to go this route. I have no problems with it. Some people are not going to like it inherently just because of J.J. McCarthy right there, but at least you got a quarterback here. And we'll see. They might not feel the need to go quarterback, in which case, obviously, then this is kind of, especially if you're someone who doesn't think that the Raiders need to go quarterback, you're not going to like this draft. So that would make sense. But otherwise, again, this cornerback, Kyrie Jackson, I think that's a pretty nice pick up there. And Malik Washington's my guy in this draft. So I obviously love that. And get a little bit of extra future capital as well to work with. Not too bad. Definitely could see them a little bit more focused on defense, going 2 defense, 1 offense here to start. Or even all 3 defense wouldn't be a complete surprise for Las Vegas. Then Pittsburgh on the clock next, and we are going to see them looking. So we're starting to see some of these cornerbacks going off here. Jason Brownlee, once again, Renardo Green was supposed to have gone here to Carolina. I jumped the gun there for that one for some reason. I have it correct over on the guide that I'm using here, but yeah, I got it wrong. All right, so Pittsburgh, Jarvis Brownlee Jr. to Pittsburgh. They still need help at cornerback, and that is apparently not the end of Pittsburgh's draft, so we will see them yet again here. And that's going to bring Cleveland on the clock, and this will be the end of the draft. They've picked twice, right? So let's see who else they got. As I said before, I don't think Cleveland has like too many instant needs. I think that they would feel comfortable going out there with their roster as it is right now, and feel that they're putting together, out a pretty darn good product. So with that in mind, they're going to continue to just go best player available while also looking into the future of where they might need some money savings down the road. And I think that some of their guys up on their defensive line are going to be leaving them soon enough and or costing them a lot of money. So if you can bring in a guy like Brandon Dorless for the future and to be a part of a rotation sooner than that, then it could be, a lot of cost savings down the road. He's an interior defensive lineman / edge, more so. It appears edge. It looked like he's kind of going towards the interior defensive lineman role to start things off. Lost a bunch of weight for Senior Bowl, but then he put some of that back on, like half of that back on for the combine, which I'm assuming that was due to advice that he received from feedback from teams. I'm like, wait, we don't agree with what you're doing or something like that. We liked you a little bit heavier. Could you put that weight back on? Because usually for the 40 and everything like that, guys are losing weight for that to get better times for the combine. Brandon Dorless instead put on 10 pounds from between the Senior Bowl and then, which isn't a lot of time. So, especially to adjust and run a good 40 or anything like that. So, Brandon Dorless, I think, still seen as somebody that teams felt comfortable in that tweener role and actually maybe liked him there, preferred him there compared to trying to limit what they can get with him. So, yeah, he's a very interesting prospect. A lot of people, I think, like Brandon Dorless to some extent. And then Mikey Sanistril as well. 2 cool prospects there, I think, for Cleveland to bring into that defense, and they're probably going to get the most out of these guys, frankly. And then a little bit of future capital and more capital for this draft as well along the way. So I think you got two good guys, and you gained more capital along the way. I would say that's a successful first couple of days there for Cleveland in my book. That's going to bring the New York Giants up on the clock next, and no running backs have been taken. We got Dallas right behind them, who maybe didn't quite see this coming, but the Giants need some help at running back now too. They'll be fine if they don't address it this early on, but kind of best player available, saying, hey, Jonathan Brooks is one heck of a running back. We're just going to take him here and not blink about it. And that is going to finish up the New York Giants draft as well. So there you go. Rome Odunze, Spencer Rattler, Max Melton, and Jonathan Brooks. Really whipping that, getting that offense, trying to get that into shape, giving it one last chance to prove itself maybe for Daniel Jones if he gets the shot yet again this year. Anything like that. I like this on the offense, and of course I love Max Melton on the defensive side there. So I think you would be okay with this, New York Giants fans. Let me know what positions maybe I should have gone instead here if you think I definitely should, or if you understand the vision here anyways. Then, I have a list of needs as well, so I don't necessarily need that from you. But let's go on to the next pick, and that's going to bring Dallas. Is this their final pick of the draft? It is. So let's get that up on the screen first. So there we go. The dam has broken here. We're going to get Trey Benson going off the board to Dallas, next running back off the board. That's going to finish Dallas's draft here, going offensive line in Troy Fautanu. And then Devontae Walker, wide receiver, Trey Benson, running back, really giving a little bit of a facelift to this offense in Dallas. I think that's exactly what they need. So I think that this works out nicely. And that's going to bring the Green Bay Packers on the board next, pick 88. Well, they don't pick. So we're going to see a trade here. And we are going to be seeing, yet again, Baltimore moving up. They've just been very aggressive, assertive in this draft, getting their guys. And so Baltimore is going to be trading picks. 114, 130, and a future third. 114, 130, a future third. To get 88, 169, and a future fourth back from Green Bay. All right, that brings Baltimore onto the clock at pick 88. And I have Baltimore taking Christian Mahogany here. That's going to wrap up their draft. I think this is one of the drafts I like, but I'm interested to get your feedback. Oh yeah, look at that. So I missed a guy here for the Ravens on my little sheet. So they got a future fourth rounder. They got Kool-Aid McKinstry. They got Adisa Isaac. They got Brendan Rice, and they got Christian Mahogany in this draft as well. So nice. I think solid first couple of rounds there for Baltimore. Definitely did some wheeling and dealing throughout the days. But, if this were how things went, then they got their guys. That's for sure. So I guess my camera went out while recording here. I'm just noticing it. We're towards the end of this. I'm just not, you're going to have to deal without seeing my face on here. What a shame. You haven't seen it probably for a while now, but I just realized it. So whatever the case, we're going to move along here to Tampa Bay at pick 89. And Tampa Bay is going to finish off these the linebackers there with Jeremiah Trotter Jr., linebacker being a need of them, of the Buccaneers. They didn't have to move around for this at all, and they do still have another pick coming up in this draft, so that's not the end of it for them. But I think that works out very nicely for Tampa Bay. Los Angeles Rams coming up on the board next, and they're just going to be able to take advantage of somebody who's fallen here, according to Trevor Sycamores' board, in Jaden Hicks. They have a safety need, so they're going to grab Jaden Hicks here, and I think that's going to work nicely, but they still have some left in this draft. They're pick 99 to go, so they're not done, but the Green Bay Packers are going to take their final. So there you go. Here's one you can see I caught some errors. Gonna come up here and get edge rusher Austin Booker. I don't think that they have an immediate need at edge rusher, but I think that's something that they're always looking and willing to grab some more power from for future. And Austin Booker is definitely, I think, a prospect, a project for them to work with, but he's got a lot of great tools to work with, and so they're just looking into the future with this kind of a best player available in quotes thing for them. type of pick here with Austin Booker. A near my guy. He was a my guy. I'm a little bit cooler on him after the combine and everything. But Austin Booker to Green Bay is going to finish that up. So we see that Green Bay's got a couple of, picked up some future capital with all these trades going on. And then Cooper DeJean, Peyton Wilson, Austin Booker. So for a team who had more picks in these first couple of rounds, I could see this being a disappointment. They do have like 4 fourth-round picks, 4 picks coming up in the next like 30, almost in the next 40 picks of this draft, less than 40. So they do have a lot of guys coming up, and they're at positions where I think it depends, I guess, if some of these guys fall to them or not at their next picks. And they obviously could move up, I think, one more time with these picks. Just a little ways, a little hop up with what they have. But to me, I don't know if this was a maker. I don't know if this was a good draft or not yet, because it really depended on what happens in the 4th round, and we're not going to find out what happened in that 4th round. But once again, they do have several picks coming up very shortly, 114, 118. Another one of theirs that they have, maybe 120, maybe 116, somewhere around there, and pick 130 as well. And then a future 3rd. I think that was for a future 4th, so swap that up. But definitely a Green Bay thing to continue to always be looking into the future. So I really like the players at positions of need in terms of Cooper DeJean, Peyton Wilson especially. And I think it just depends if it comes together here in the 4th round or not. As to whether this would be a good draft strategy or not for Green Bay. I tend to lean in, maybe it was a little too aggressive in jumping up for their guys, but maybe not. They are at a position, I think, team building wise, that they could do that. So that's going to bring us on to Tampa Bay at pick 92, and this is going to be their final pick of the draft. So let's get that up here. So there is going to be the final pick here. Josh Newton going to Tampa Bay. They could use some help in their secondary. So offensive line to start this off with Graham Barton, Cooper Beebe. I like that quite a bit. It gives them some flexibility and some assurity there. Immediate improvement in long-term building keys that they can work with, whatever. Jeremiah Trotter in at linebacker, I don't think you can complain about that. Same with Josh Newton at cornerback. Maybe you would like a different linebacker, different cornerback, but other than that, I like, and maybe you'd prefer taking a guard a little bit later after you took Graham Barton in the first. But I thought you got good value here all around there for Tampa Bay, so I would not be upset with that draft either. Washington up on the clock next. They are going to be taking Zach Zinter, so this would be a reach via plenty of mock draft boards, but I am hearing some other love for Zach Zinter out there, so I'm not alone, but I am in the minority of Zach Zinter going this early. But for Washington, even if this might be a little bit of a reach, but it just kind of comes down to what the board looks like, and drafting need instead of best player available, maybe a little bit here as well for Washington. And they still have another pick in this draft, so we're not quite done yet. That's going to bring San Francisco on the board, but they are going to be trading here with Pittsburgh, I believe. San Fran picked 94, and oh, look at that. Pittsburgh wanted to come up here on here. 94, 132, and for 98 and 119. So there you go. Pittsburgh coming up here. And they are looking at, I remember this one. Johnny Wilson for Pittsburgh. They need some help at wide receiver now after trading Deontay Johnson away. So they're going to come in here and take Johnny Wilson. I feel like they're the type of team that would take this shot on Johnny Wilson. Just, I don't know what about it. Just seems right to me. They have proven in recent time, too, that they like these, that they have a spot that they want for these big-time wide receivers. You think of the Mapletron. Chase Claypool, previous guy that Pittsburgh tried on. Maybe Johnny Wilson is really what they were looking for in Chase Claypool. That's possible. So there is the complete draft, getting of some future capital, a little bit more capital in this draft. Pick 103 coming up very shortly. They still have that available to them. They didn't use that in the trade here. And then Jackson Powers Johnson in at center, Christian Jones. So just completing that offensive line, bringing in Travis Brownlee Jr. for another cornerback that they need, and then Johnny Wilson at so getting need and I think appropriate spending values for the most part on these. Might be a little bit high for a center. Christian Jones, I guess Christian Jones you might be viewing as a reach. Jarvis Brownlee Jr. via consensus, I don't believe this is a reach, but a little less known, talked about guy than Johnny Wilson is one of those where I think you're going to hear a lot of different opinions if he goes in the third round on whether he was worth it or not. And we just really won't know until he gets out on the field and we find out come that point in time. He's an interesting one to keep an eye on, but that's it. So, yeah, an interesting draft here for Pittsburgh. Don't know if you like it or not, their fans. That's going to bring Kansas City up onto the clock next. And it's been a while since we saw Kansas City, and they're going to finish up this draft with edge rusher Gabriel Murphy. So definitely focusing on the defensive front seven here with some of these picks. And I actually have a very specific role that I think Gabriel Murphy that they could draft him for, edge / linebacker kind of tweener here in Gabriel Murphy. And the Drew Tranquill role is actually something that I think they could see something in Gabriel Murphy and say, hey, we want to get you prepared to end up being the successor to Drew Tranquill. Just brought him back, I think, on like a 2-year deal or something, but they experienced some time without him last season. I think that that's a role that they really want to keep up to some extent. So Gabriel Murphy gives them an opportunity to do that, in my opinion. And then you saw Patrick Paul here. They're getting a couple of project guys, Braden Fisk. You can probably bring him in day one and play him just fine. So, nice, I think, for a team who's there now and can look into the future, and it's a deep wide receiver draft. There's still going to be an option for them to go get another wide receiver, which I think they still want to do in this draft. But I think they're in a position now that they don't have to right at the top of the draft if it's not kind of best player available for them. So that concludes Kansas City's draft here at pick 95. That's going to bring on Jacksonville at pick 96. And the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to take a guy who, this is more of a consensus pick than it is my pick, but I thought that they needed a little bit more help here on the offensive line in Blake Fisher in terms of the needs that I have. And also consensus-wise, Blake Fisher would be a good deal at this point in time. I think he was, what does Trevor Sikkema have him? Yeah, 78 on the big board, so he was right up here, right there on the screen. I didn't have to search for him. And that is going to conclude Jacksonville's draft. So I think they're just going to be a couple spots back here in this little slideshow. Oh, one spot back. So there you go. Blake Fisher, Ricky Pearsall, Quinyon Mitchell, and a little bit of extra value in this draft with that fifth round pickup. And that's Jacksonville's draft so far. So, I mean, I like the first two picks. I'm not a huge fan of Blake Fisher, but I'm just lower on him. It's not that I dislike Blake Fisher by any means, just a little bit lower on him than consensus is. So, but still, helps out, I think, in Jacksonville in terms of an area where they have a little bit of extra need there. That's going to bring Cincinnati on the clock at pick 97. And so we are going to see Cincinnati trading out here to the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, I assume this is going to be some sort of... We're going to be bringing one of these picks way up in the draft, if I had to guess. Cincinnati 97 and 194 for 110, 181. So just a small jump up, but the future capital is why we're going to do this. All right, makes enough sense here for Cincinnati, condensing this draft capital a little bit more here and getting a little bit of future capital. And Los Angeles Chargers are coming up for no other than Blake Corum. So they're going to bring in two Michigan guys here in the first couple of rounds of this draft, trading up in both situations for them. I mean, you could see it happening at least once in this draft, especially given the talent of and number of Michigan guys coming out. It will not be a surprise if the Los Angeles Chargers come away with one or two of them. So Blake Corum, running back. Los Angeles Chargers need running back. They're going to want to lean on running back. They're very familiar with Blake Corum there. And so this would make a lot of sense. And it's probably around the area that he will end up going in the draft. I'm a little bit lower on him, but I think as long as you put a good offensive line in front of Blake Corum, he'll be a great running back. It's just as soon as that offensive line sucks, I don't know that he adds a whole lot after contact or anything like that. That's going to bring San Francisco up onto the board next, and here's going to be, definitely a my pick here, and I'm I'm projecting myself on to San Francisco with Tip Ryman, but this is like they're looking into the future kind of pick here, a replacement down the road for George Kittle, that kind of pick. I really like Tip, and I will be surprised if he goes this early, but I will not be shocked, if that makes sense. Like, I'll be surprised because it's not expected. I won't be shocked because I see that. I think it's possible that a team could see something that they would be willing to reach a little bit, admittedly, and just get him as their guy. So they also, he also thinks that birds are not real or something. So maybe he just doesn't get drafted. It's all possible. That does finish up this draft for San Fran. This feels like a very San Fran draft. A lot of times people walk away feeling whelmed from the San Francisco 49ers drafts, and they do just go for guys that, they want. They don't care what you think of the guys that they're drafting. They just get them. And at the end of the day, they do a pretty darn good job of drafting overall. So we'll see how I did here trying to predict their draft, but got him a little extra value here. Got him Tyler Guyton, a project for the future, looking into that. Marshawn Nealon, a guy who they could use now, and then Tip Ryman also looking into the future. But also, they did get rid of some of their long-term depth at tight end, so they could use a little re-upping there as well. And Tip, even a guy who I think could take a little bit of the use check role at some point too, would be possible. So a lot of areas for Tip to find a home on this roster. Whether it ever be anywhere near George Kittle or not, I don't know. But I would say they might see a guy who they see the next 10 years, whatever, it could be on their roster for, in Tip Ryman. So there we go. It's really going to come down to how much Tip Ryman loves football. And I got a feeling that football is life in his family. So he probably eats, breathes, and sleeps football. That's going to be the Los Angeles Rams up on the board next. Let's go look at what they have. I was stalling a little bit to give you a little more time to see that San Francisco final draft. But the Rams are going to be coming up next. There you go. You can see where we're going. We're going to be going with cornerback Andrew Phillips with this pick of the draft. Pick 99, ranked 82nd. So this is an absolute my guy. I actually pointed Trevor Sikkema into his direction during senior days, Senior Bowl, just to try to get his opinion on him. But he hadn't really had a chance to see him, and he watched him like overnight, and he was like, responded, like, yeah. I like quite a bit of it. And since then, he's driven. So I would like to take credit for Andrew Phillips being ranked 82nd on Trevor Sikkema's board is what I'm getting to. Regardless, and by the way, that's not like through a personal connection, just a comment on YouTube. So Andrew Phillips going to wrap up this draft for the Los Angeles Rams. Laiatu Latu early on. I love this draft. It's T'Vondre Sweat, Laiatu Latu, Jaden Hicks, Andrew Phillips. This feels very 49ers-esque. You might like to see a little bit more juice, but I mean, Laiatu Latu, I know it sounds like he's the boring pick, but I think he's the best edge rusher in this class, and I think that he'll come out day one and prove that. And you get yourself a very good edge rusher. T'Vondre Sweat, I think you get yourself an incredibly good rotational guy who's going to be a game changer and help win you some games sometimes, even though he's not able to play all three downs. Jaden Hicks, just a place of need. Some people would probably nearly want to put him as their number one safety, getting him a fair bit down the board here. And then Andrew Phillips, once again, my guy, who I think is just very versatile in what you can do with him as a receiver, as a cornerback. You can face him up against any type of wide receiver, and I think that he has the ability to shut down all of them. Fast, big, shifty. He can keep up with them all. So I really like Andrew Phillips quite a bit as a low-key shutdown kind of guy. So that's going to bring on the final pick of this draft, Washington. There we go. Busy first couple of days of the draft for them, for Washington. We're going to take DJ James as the final pick of this. That's going to finish up the draft. And you can still see this though, right? Yes. So Washington, you're going to go Jaden Daniels, Tyler Nubin, Darius Robinson, Malachi Corley, Zach Zinter, DJ James. I would say that that's a mighty fine draft there for Washington. Some of you might think Malachi Corley, you might love it. Some of you might not. Zach Zinter, most of you probably think could have gotten him later in the draft. I'm not so sure about that. We'll see come draft day. Either way, it might be a little bit of a reach, but I think you'll be happy with what you get from him. Probably. I think there's a very good chance that he'll be a successful player at the next level. And then DJ James, cornerback, hitting up a place of need again and getting, I think, appropriate value there instead of having reached for him at any point earlier. So, yeah, I think he played the board nicely there, Washington, in terms of what positions they took, when and where, and still able to get matching need to, which they have a lot of needs, fairly, to be perfectly fair. But getting the value to hit at the appropriate times for them in the draft, I think works out pretty nicely here. That is going to end the video and this mock draft. So once again, you can check out the first round, more so my explanations on some of those things, up on the website, www.theFFForge.com. There's a link down in the description to that as well. And thank you very much for tuning in. I love you. I'm sorry you couldn't see my face for longer in this video, but the camera died. All right, bye-bye.